Hey there, Gray Hamlin here from Blues Guitar Unleashed. Welcome. Thanks for joining me in another hard rock soloing video. So I know this is not blues, obviously, but we're going to talk about a couple of things, and these are very important to the harder rock style. And again, this often carries over to blues rock, classic rock, really just about any kind of rock, I guess. So obviously, one of the things that's going to matter here is my tone. And so I want to talk just a second about the fact that, yes, I have a substantially higher amount of overdrive. I'm using a pedal. This is an older pedal by a company called MI Effects, and it's called a Crunch Box, and it's what is commonly called a Marshall in a box. And what they mean by that is it's a pedal designed to sound like a roaring, Marshall stack kind of thing, but in a pedal. There are a bazillion of these available. So many different manufacturers make this style of pedal now, and I find it to be very useful when I don't want to keep switching amps. Obviously, I have plenty of Marshalls, but if I were to actually turn them on, it would kind of blow things away. They're very, very, very loud. So for the purposes of teaching, something like a pedal, a Marshall in a box style, or an overdrive distortion type of pedal does a really good job, because we are going to talk about these elusive artificial harmonics. And I can promise you that if you try to do these with a really clean tone, it's not going to work out very well. We need the harmonic distortion, and we need the high end, we need that sizzle and the compression and all of the things that this overdrive gives us. We need that. Otherwise, this really isn't going to work out very well, and there's not much anybody's going to be able to do about it. You can do this kind of thing even on an acoustic guitar. It's just not very loud. You probably won't hear it. Okay, so we have a lick today, and it ends with, there's two things. The last note, it says AH, meaning artificial harmonic. We're going to talk about that. The other thing is we have some palm muted notes. Now this is in C. So I'm actually playing the C minor blues scale. I have a C power chord, A flat power chord, B flat power chord. Very common. I call this the Stairway to Heaven changes. Different key. Just that kind of thing. Very, very comfortable, simple, but very, classic hard rock type of chord progression. You'll find this in hundreds, if not thousands, of hard rock songs throughout history. So we're going to start off with a little hammer-on from the 8th to the 10th fret on the 3rd string. That's going to be the and of 4. Then we're going to come back and strike that 8 again, and on beat 1, 8, and come down to 10. But when we come down to the 10th fret on the 4th string, we're going to add in that little bit of palm mute. And we're literally going to walk down 10, 8, 10, 9, 8. We're just walking down box 1 of the minor blues scale. But that last note, we're going to slide down to the 6th fret, and we're going to get that artificial harmonic. We'll talk about that in just a second. Let's play this nice and slow. I won't play the artificial harmonic. I'll just play the note. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and. You'll notice I'm pretty much using downstrokes for everything because I want to get that palm mute. I could do alternate picking, but this is not that fast. I can probably downstroke it all, and that's going to just sound a little better and be a little easier. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and. One more time. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2, and. So that's the tricky part. Except for that last note. All right, so that is what we call an artificial harmonic. Now, if you don't know what traditional harmonics are, you got to know that first. So let's talk about traditional harmonics. I'm going to bring the volume down here a little bit. When we have, let's say, an open string, right, an open A string, if I go to the 12th fret and I lightly touch it, and I mean very lightly, and I'm doing it right over the fret wire, not in the middle of the fret where I would push down on it, but literally right over the fret wire, and I lightly touch that spot, and then as soon as I pick it, I bring my finger away. Now, when I work with students on this, probably the biggest hang up that they have is they'll hold the finger there. So they'll play the note, but they'll leave their finger there. Well, it's going to mute it out after a second. So make sure you don't do that. Don't leave it there. Strike it and then come away. You don't have to be super fast about it, but you do have to get out of there. Okay? Now that's going to be the same note as if I play that fretted note. Okay? We should have the same note. If you don't, your intonation is really out on your guitar. Now, that 12th fret right there, we are dividing the vibrating length of string in half. In case you're curious, if we go down to the 5th fret and do the same thing, we are now dividing the string into 4 pieces. By the way, make sure you are on your bridge position pickup. It's the only part, because it's going to be hearing only about this much of the string. If I switch over to my neck position pickup and try to do this harmonic, it's going to be really light. You're barely going to hear it. But you can hear here, you're going to hear it nice and full, nice and big. Okay? And again, with more overdrive, this will ring out all day long. If I turn off my overdrive pedal, you'll hear it, but it's not going to be a lot. Obviously, it is not the same note as the fretted note, so this one might be easier to practice on. Again, strike it, move away. Okay, so what we're doing when we do that is, like I said, we're dividing the vibrating length of string into halves or quarters. You can do thirds at the 7th fret, right? Those are the main natural, what we call harmonics, right? Is it the 5th fret, the 7th fret, and the 12th fret? Okay, well here's the thing. You probably have noticed that the frets get smaller as you go up, and that's because we can sort of do the same trick. Meaning, if let's say I put a finger at the 7th fret of the 5th string, and I go up to 12 frets from there, which would be the 17th. I guess that'd be the 19th. Excuse me, I can't do math. Math is not an exact science, it's fine. You can see how I can create a harmonic at that 12th fret, meaning 12 frets up from here. I'm just tapping it with my middle finger, right? 5 frets from here would be the 12th fret. A little trickier to get that. What you might also try doing is switching your pick over to your middle finger and use your first finger. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to put my first finger of my right hand on that 12th fret, and then I'm going to pick. And I can get that to come out pretty well. Or tap it a few times till you get it just right. There's a variety of ways to approach this. So from any point, there's one, there's one, there's one. I could keep working my way up, and you'll hear other harmonics start to come out as you move your way up the string. Those 5th, 7th, 12th frets, they will repeat. Now, some people will talk about the fact that you can do a harmonic at like the 4th fret on the 3rd string, and if you're doing dive bombs and crazy squeals and stuff, there are other harmonics that will come out, but they're not always trivial to find, and they often require an enormous amount of distortion to get them to come out. Again, they're just really subtle. You're dividing your string into very small segments. They can be really tricky to find, That doesn't mean they don't exist. It just means they may or may not actually be useful for our purposes. Now, one trick you can do with this is sort of probably heard that sound before. Notice that as I just very lightly touch my string, and I'm just picking, and you can kind of hear all of those harmonics come out, okay? And I know I'm making a long discussion out of this, but if you're not really that good with harmonics, if you've never used them before, they're really mystifying. At least they were to me. So I really want to make sure I show you all of these things that you can do with them. So now, the end of my lick, let's bring my lick back up on screen, right? So how do we get that, what we'll call an artificial harmonic, or in this case, a pinch harmonic? I'm actually doing the harmonic with my right hand. Remember that trick I told you about using your first finger and your pick? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is while I'm holding that 6th fret, that last note, I'm gonna find this spot. I like that sound, so I'm gonna go with that one. Now I could have picked this one. Okay, and you can, I'm hitting it with my finger. I'm picking behind it again. You can see it's just past the pickup. You kind of have to notice where it is because you're gonna have to find it with your thumb. This one here is kind of halfway in between, and that's kind of where I naturally pick. So what I'm gonna do is instead of using my middle finger and my first finger to create that harmonic, I'm gonna pick, and then I'm gonna bounce the back of my thumb, the part behind the pick. So pick, bounce my thumb. Is it always gonna come out? No, it's not always gonna come out. Sometimes you're gonna miss ever so slightly. You have to be very, very, very precise with this. But again, I'm just doing that bounce. Similar to what I was doing here. But I'm doing it with my thumb. And then what's gonna happen is as you get better at that, you'll get to the point that you can bounce your thumb off as the pick goes across the string. So that pick bounce turns into just pick bounce all at once. And that's how I'm getting that squeal. And you can see as I move, I get different notes. So you don't, it sounds like a big racket when you're just banging away on it. I get that. It really does kind of make a racket. But it takes a little practice, obviously, but that's the process that I always have students go through. Start with playing natural harmonics, tapping them, using your right hand first finger, go to putting the pick behind that finger, get them to come out there, then switch to the pick where you pick and bounce the thumb, and then try to get it all in one motion. It definitely takes some time, takes a little bit of practice, but once you get the hang of it, you have licks like this, and you can get that squeal. If you're more into like, you can play basically an entire scale this way. And you just kind of mess around with it. And admittedly, you'll find the spots on your guitar. Every guitar is different. Okay, so it's not like I can say, okay, it's gonna be, 4 centimeters behind the rear pickup. I don't know if it will. You're gonna have to find that. You have to kind of dig around. The tapping is really effective for that because you're not relying on being able to do that thing where you pinch the thumb behind the pick, right? So find the spot first and then practice bouncing the thumb off of it, and that should grab it for you, okay? So I know that's a fairly long-winded explanation, but this is not a trivial thing to do. Once you get the hang of it, though, you can do it all you want, and you can do it all day long. And you'll realize that as you get better at it, there's a lot of places where these notes will come out. And so you're not going to be nearly so worried about, oh, am I in the right spot? Because if you miss it just a little bit, you just slide a little bit to one direction or the other, there's going to be something there, okay? So play around with this. It's a lot of fun. And obviously it's an extremely important technique for hard rock and heavy metal music. It is everywhere. You have to be able to do this. So make sure you take some time on it. And as always, I'm Griff Hamlin from Blues Guitar Unleashed, and I will see you in the next video.